and the bottom of the right wall. This is a lot flatter, a lot more horizontal. This is a lot more vertical. Now, the novice would be upset about that, because in their mind, they know they're the same. They know that that angle of that bottom of that wall, the architect designed it as a horizontal in reality, right? Put a level down there and say, oh, that's level. And the angle of the bottom of that wall, oh, that's level. So in your mind, as a novice, you're like, well, those are the same. How could this be a lot more vertical in my drawing and this be a lot more horizontal in my drawing? Well, it's just the nature of perspective. If you were to stand over here and line a ruler up with that, the closer I get to this wall, the more vertical those become, the more horizontal those become.
Is the focal length of your eye like changes?
Well, the plane is so foreshortened, right?
Right, yeah.
That it's dramatically getting small, right?
Right.
So these have to angle up a lot more severely than those. That whole wall, generally speaking, is like, yeah, that's a little further away than that from me, right? So, but it's not severe, right? Here, this is like right up on my face, right? So big. So it goes shoo.
Okay. So when you're constructing this space, that vanishing point, in theory, is as far on the other side of that wall as you are from it?
If it's in infinity, there's no measurement. Yeah, yeah. Is that what you're saying? It's further. Oh, you mean is it as far away from that wall as I am from the wall?
Right.
Oh, it's further. It's infinity. You know, it's like way further away. It's miles and miles and miles and miles away. That vanishing point. That vanishing point is so far away that this plane, if I could see it keep going, it would totally disappear.
Yet it was determined by...
It's a coordinate. So what all I'm doing is my position relative. It's like a what's that called when you're
perpendicular?
No, a lot. You know, like a scope.
Reticle. The reticle.
Crosshairs, like a crosshair scope, right?
Yeah.
I'm finding where my position is in space relative to that object. Okay, it's a weird thing. So when I move, the vanishing point moves because it's not real. It's a construct. That's what I'm saying. It doesn't really exist. It's just a way for me to figure out these angles. Kinda, yeah. I am the vanishing point. Yes, yeah, yeah.
So
Except
you draw it as yourself being the vanishing point. Everything is coming.
that's what I'm saying. That's why it's perspective. You know, the vanishing point shifts when I move into the middle. Watch what happens to these lines. Let's say it's not here anymore. Let's say it is in the middle. Like I'm standing in the middle right over there, right? Look what happens to the angle of this line right here. Watch. It flattens out, right? This one down a little bit more. So those are equal now in terms of angle, right? Because I moved over to the middle of the space. Okay. This would flatten out too, right?
When you get the vanishing point down the right-hand side, maybe a third of the way, and if you were going to draw, say,
On the right, like right here?
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
wherever it was originally.
Oh yeah, right there,
And
yeah.
you're going to do that bulletin board, which would be the one that would look the biggest to you.
Yeah. So let's go back to this scenario.
Right.
Yeah, that wall's really foreshortened.
And
This one.
that's about a third of the way up. Am I correct?
Okay, so what is your question here? Here's the wall I'm looking at.
Okay, so if you're going to draw, say that you were doing the inside of this room as our project,
Yeah.
and you were going to put that board, which is the biggest thing on that wall,
Yeah.
and it's about a third of the way, do you draw your vertical lines first?
Well, you're saying how high to put it on the wall?
If you were going to draw that bulletin board.
From where? From this
on-
point of view right here.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Your original point of view.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's going to look very large because it's closest to you.
Yeah. We'll get to that in a second. But what I have to do is I have to figure out, like right behind Adam there, I got to figure out where to start that line on my drawing, right?
Right. Right.
So what I need to do is assess how far from the corner of the room I have to go till I draw that line. Okay, that vertical line. Once I figure that out, then that board is, the bottom of that board is about halfway up the height of the wall right here. This bulletin board right here.
Right.
So what I would do is go halfway up the wall, put a little dot there, right? Project from the infinity point to that dot, and that would give me the bottom of the bulletin board. Okay? The top of the bulletin board is almost as high as the ceiling. See that, right? So I would keep going up, 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 till I'm about at the height of the ceiling, and then project. So that's a horizontal network. So that's kind of how the bulletin board would look from that point of view. Very, very, very distorted, right? Very expansive in its, because it's foreshortened, right? That's the power of perspective. That makes a drawing look really powerful, you know? Because your tendency is to not realize it's that dramatic, and then you would make it look more generic. You know, if you weren't obeying the vanishing point, and I've seen that endlessly. You know, the general movement is not to be radical in a drawing, is to be more kind of passive. Okay, so understanding where the vanishing point allows you to kind of create that sense of drama in the drawing.
I don't understand why we replaced there, that it would have been brought closer this way.
Well, I'd have to measure it and see. So I could do that real quick here if you want me to, because you're going to do this today. All right. So here's how I'd figure that out. Okay, from where I'm standing right here, I got to kind of first figure out how high that wall is down there. I can't really see. I can see it. So what I'm going to do, I can see it right there. I'm going to measure the height of that wall, okay? Because you're going to be doing this in a second. I'm going to run through this scenario for you when you're out in the hall. I'm going to do an imaginary drawing for you. I'm going to grab the height of that wall with my pencil, right? Close one eye, right? So, you know, lining the tip up with the top of the wall and my thumb with the bottom, okay? I'm going to take that measurement, turn it sideways, slide it over, and I'm going to see how many of those it takes, how many heights of that wall it takes, turn sideways to get to where that edge of that board is right behind Adam, okay? So I'm comparing something I've already drawn, the height of that wall, to something I'm trying to find out, which is where is that line right here. So I'm going like this, turning it sideways, and I'm measuring from the corner of the room, which I have on my drawing, to the edge of this bulletin board right here, okay? And believe it or not, I'm getting about a 1-to-1. So I go back to my drawing, I measure this, right? Turn it sideways from the corner of the room over, and you're right, it's probably maybe about right here instead, a little closer. So it's even more foreshortened than I had imagined, because it feels like it's maybe something like this. And this measurement right here needs to equal this measurement from my point of view.
Okay, and from my point of view, I've seen two, but it's because I'm...
It's all different.
Yeah.
All different, yeah. This has nothing to do with what's really happening, right? So for instance, these lights here, I won't do every one of them, but you'll be doing it in the ceiling when you're out in the hall. These rows of lights here, right? Let's say, here's my vanishing point, right? Let's say I got 20 of these rows, right? You got to equally divide them along this line. Those are dots where I'm going to project the rows from, okay? That's not evenly divided, but yours won't be that complex because there'll be 5 rows you have to deal with, okay? I take my vanishing point, go through each one of those to get the way the rows are opening up to me. And then by the time I get back to here, you know, I'm kind of back, these get real crunched down, they get very close to one another, and I'm back to the angle of the top of that wall. So everything kind of splays around the vanishing point. So too with tiles, you know, if I could see that they would all kind of go to that vanishing point. By the time I get over here, I'm parallel to the bottom of the wall. Okay, so the whole space, everything is parallel. That's why geometry allows you to do this. Everything's parallel to each other. You know, architects build it this way. You don't build it haphazardly. So everything will go right to that vanishing point. Now look at the lights, for instance. Let's say look at this line right here, for instance. So the row, like right above my head, right? That's a horizontal line in reality, right? In my drawing, it's absolutely vertical. So that's going to mess with your head. when you're making this drawing. So how could that be a vertical line on my drawing? I know it's a horizontal line, right? So that's where your brain starts playing tricks on you. You got to obey the structure. Now, if I were to take a ruler and approximate the angle of that thing, you know, like we do, you know, I'm going to line, oh, look at that, it's absolutely vertical. But in my head's saying, oh, it's a horizontal line, right? So that's not far, that's kind of, I'm doing that row right now, that's like that. I'm doing that row. You know, so those are still pretty vertical. Then as they, so you could do this with a ruler, right? I can approximate. Why do that when you have you found out where that vanishing point is, right? Just take everything to that vanishing point. Brianna.
I was just saying, so like, we're trying to see like the distance, like how something is from like our perspective and the city and the floor. So we wouldn't angle our lines to meet the other edge. We just go straight across.
What do you mean? I
Because
don't know.
like when we draw our lines onto the paper and stuff compared to the other like vertical lines from where we're standing at our vanishing point, we wouldn't angle like how the ruler would go when we make our lines. We just go straight across to draw.
Oh, you mean on horizontal lines that aren't moving away from us?
Yes.
Yeah, those are just always straight across. That's right. Yeah. So, for instance, the lights here, the front and back of these lights right here, in this row, those would just be straight across lines. Those are always, if it's not, you only have two choices, 1 point perspective. You have a horizontal line that's not moving away from you, and you have a horizontal line that is moving away from you. The ones that do move away have to go to that vanishing point. The ones that aren't moving away are just horizontal, always, okay? And verticals are just that, always vertical. Okay, so three choices in a 1 point perspective drawing. Now, these lights, for instance, we'll get to this, but while I'm here, I'll just let you know, like, not that one all the way to the end, that's square, okay? The one by that kind of charcoal potato there, that's square. But the one next one up, that's a rectangular shape, right? It's longer this way than it is this way in reality, right? But I'm going to measure it here, and I'm going to see how much front to back there is versus its width. I'm going to use my pencil for that. I don't have pencil, right? I'm measuring the front to back right now, and it's this big. It's skinny, 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 right? And I'm going to turn that sideways and walk it across the width of that shape. And I get 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5. So there's almost 5 front to backs. 5 of those fit across the width of it. In reality, it's the other way around. The light's a lot longer this way than it is this way, by a factor of 2. It's almost probably 3 to a foot and a half or something, 3 feet to a foot and a half maybe. So it's much longer this way than it is this way. But that light down there is revealing itself in a different way. It's really foreshortened. So when I draw it, I better make sure that this dimension right here fits across here four times. Because the novice in me wants to do this, wants to make it really long, right? In fact, like that maybe, right? Where in actuality, I'm seeing it like this. The only way I know that is by measuring its width to its height, or its length to its width, okay? Not only that, but I have to do the spaces in between and measure those too as well. Now this light right here, this one, its front to back versus its width is about 2. So this one, when I get up to here, there's one in between, and then there's one right here. This fits across here twice. Why is this one the front to back fit across here twice, but this one fits across 5 times?
It's closer to you.
Yeah, it's opening up as it gets closer to me, right? It's not as foreshortened as that one all the way down there. Weirdness, you know, it all boils down to turning that 3-dimensional road putting it on a 2-dimensional plane and making it look 3-dimensional. That's very difficult to do. There's lots of quote-unquote distortions going on that we don't even think about when we walk down the hall, right? I mean, we just process all this stuff very effortlessly and without even thinking about it, right? So that's what makes for a bad drawing, is that, you know, people will not think about this stuff, and then their drawings will suffer because of that, right? Those kind of react, knowing that all these lights are equal, you know, and heaven forbid that one is not the same shape as this in my drawing. It isn't in reality, but my brain's processing it as such, because otherwise I would, you know, I'd just probably go mad, right? you know, having to deal with every weird reality that's being presented to me in terms of the visual world. Okay, so any questions about this? Now I'm going to walk through with you the hallway. I'll show you what you're going to draw today, how you're going to kind of process that. So we'll just take a little break here, we don't leave, but just kind of relax for a second.
I have two questions.
Good choice.
So, look at this wall, you're 10% from the wall to the floor.
It's what?
So your-
10% what?
Your location is like.
Kind of, yeah, I would say, yeah.
Somebody
It's-
said 10%.
Yeah, I'd say
and
that's about,
fine.
yeah,
But
what Joyce is saying, this would fit across here maybe about 10 times. That's about a tenth of the way over. What's that?
When you put the drawing on the board, you put yourself on the opposite side. Did you do that just for us to see it, and would we do our drawings? the same
You would,
way?
if I'm positioned to the right of that plane,
Right.
right? In this scenario, right? I go to my drawing and I position myself to the right of that plane.
So it's kind of a flip. in a
No, it's
sense.
not a flip, no. Because
Well-
I'm to the right here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just drawing, if I had my drawing right here in front of me, I'd be putting myself to the right here. The only reason, you know, I have to turn to draw this, right? So that creates a little bit of a disconnect. But if I were drawing this drawing right here, I had the plane in front of me, I would put myself over on the right-hand side because I'm on the right-hand side. Yeah. It is a weird disconnect, okay?
My second question is, in your first drawing where you said it was a cube, and this is my brain speaking, okay? In math, in geometry, the cube is equal on all
I know,
sides.
yeah.
So it's not really a cube.
No, it isn't.
because
No, yeah.
it's
And
really
that's exactly, I had
just
somebody a couple years ago, I kept calling it a cube, and they said, no, it's a box. So that's what, now I call it a cube and a box. Because a cube proper is equal on all 6 sides.
And that's what
correct.
was
Yep,
confusing
yep.
me.
I interchange those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I interchange
So
those.
when you put the vanishing point, you get rid of the equal sides. When you look at it.
Yeah, it's who knows if they're equal. That's really hard to determine. It's more of a box. We'll just call it a box. Okay, for you we'll call it a box. A cube, you are absolutely right, is equal on all sides. That's correct.
And,
Yeah.
and it doesn't appear.
And I
to
don't
be a
mean
vanishing
that when I say that. You know, the boxes that I drew could be longer this dimension than they are high. You know, this is you know, something like that is a box, right?
Correct.
Obviously longer in this dimension than it is this dimension or this dimension, right? I would still call it a cube in space because it's
Draw a cube.
draw a cube as best I can.
Yeah.
It depends on the angle. I would say maybe
See, a cube doesn't do that.
something like that.
See, a cube doesn't do that.
Doesn't do what?
It doesn't have that deep of a slant.
Oh, it does. Yeah. If I were to construct, no, if I were.
Look at it, it does.
No,
When you-
isometric cube doesn't. Like in geometry, an isometric
Yes.
cube doesn't. You would have,
Yes.
yeah. Mathematicians wouldn't deal with it in this way. They would make darn sure every line that they draw is equal. Right. That's correct. But if I brought a cube in here that was equal on all 6 sides, right? All 6 planes were equal, right? And I plopped it down in front of me, and I was to draw that cube,
As you see it.
it would look like that. I would have to draw it like that, yeah, as I see it, that's right. If I drew it as I knew it, which I don't want anybody to do in here, that's what we're trying to prevent, then it wouldn't look like that, that's correct, yeah. It would be isometric, it would be, you know, a geometric drawing, right? Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Yeah.
The rows of the ceiling, if you're looking at them from that vantage point of 10%,
Yeah. Right here, right down there. Right, yeah.
are they really equidistant as you see them?
No, they're not. Not in this space, okay? So that's a very good point. They would get slightly smaller as they move that direction because that corner of the room is further away from me than this, right?
Right.
For your drawing out in the hallway, you don't have to worry about that, okay? It's because the hallway is not nearly as wide as this room, right? Okay? So what Ted's saying, the spaces, if I were to line these up all along here, right? This corner of the room is further away from me than this corner of the room, right? So these rows, the increments between them would get slightly smaller as they move into this corner of the room because it's so much further away from it because the room's so long. Okay? That's too much detail, and your hallways aren't that wide. Okay? That makes sense? Yeah. But you're right. Yeah. Yeah. They would be smaller. Yeah.
So is that a 20 point?
No. It's still 1 point. They're just closer together. That's all. They're smaller. Okay. We'll talk about multiple point perspective. A multiple point perspective is the result of geometric shapes that generally possess right angles and parallel lines, all being at weird angles to one another. So this whole, if all these desks were turned at different angles to one another in this room, and I was drawing the room, but all the desks were turned at weird angles to each desk would have its own set of 2 point, and they would all exist on that horizon line. That's a little kind of advanced right now to deal with, but every desk would go to its own set of 2 point perspectives on that horizon line. If the whole room was lined up perfectly in a grid, and I was looking at the wall and looking at the whole room, that whole grid, that whole room, if they're all right angles to each other, if everything's parallel to each other, goes to one vanishing point. The moment they're skewed and turned at weird angles, each one of those desks has its own set of vanishing points on the horizon line. Okay. We'll get to that later when we do the 2 point drawing. But, all right, so here's what you're going to do. I'm going to walk you through it because it'll be complicated, so bear with me here. And I've already hit a lot of the stuff here that you'll have to deal with. So, so it's just me explaining the scenario that you're going to be doing. So, here's your drawing, and it's a little complicated. So you pay attention here because it compositionally, spatially, you got some things to think about. And here's the hallway that there's nothing there yet, but I'm going to draw. Now, sometimes there's a wall at the end of the hall, plane, and then a couple doors, like down here where we go past the, if you turn right and go out, there's a wall here with a doorway. Sometimes you just have the end of the hallway that's creating a shape, right? And it's teeing into another hallway, going the other way, right? You got to still see that shape of the end of the hallway. You got to kind of figure out what shape that is, okay? And draw it. Even though there's not a wall there, you got to draw the end of that. Because that's the plane you're looking at. That's the shape. Even though there's not a wall there, it's still the end of the cube. So it has a definite shape to it. So let's say you're looking down the hallway, and the shape that's created either by a wall being there or by it being just a empty space that tees into another hallway is something like that, okay? And here's your drawing, and you go over and you try to replicate that on your drawing. Because that's your starting point, right? The plane you're looking at. Even though it's not a wall, it's still a plane, it's the end of a cube. So, end of a box. I'm going to replicate that, okay? Now, there's a bunch of other stuff going on. I see the wall and the floor and all that stuff, but I'm kind of narrowing it down. And let's say I draw it like this. Okay, where did I go wrong? What? It's a square, where it's not the same shape, right? So how would I figure out how to get to... I measure height versus width, right? Yeah. So I measure this, and let's say this fits across here 1.5 times, right? Go to my drawing, and I make sure this fits across here how many times? Yeah, so I use the pencil, turn it, go to my drawing, lay the pencil down, check out whether I've got the right proportion, right? And I got a 1-to-1. What do I do to fix that? Make it wider. Or I could make it, narrow or shorter, so that either way, you want that 1 to 1.5, right? So yeah, it makes sense to kind of widen that out a little bit, okay? Now I've got a shape that's more indicative, and I measured it out, of what that looks like. It's important, because if you start with a shape that's not right, your hallway's not going to feel wide enough, or it may feel too wide. This is going to control the whole drawing, right? So you got to get the shape of the end of that plane of the box correct. All right. So let's say that, it's a short hallway. So this is a little closer to me. would the size of that thing be correct? The scale on my drawing. What's that?
You'd probably want it a little bigger.
Yeah, so it feels like it's a little closer, right? You know, so I got to check myself there. Am I making it the correct size? Okay. If not, then I got to expand it while keeping the proportion, right? Maybe a little bigger. Okay. Now it feels like it's a little closer to me. So you got to think about scale. So proportion and scale. Two things that are going on here. The third thing is location. What if I was like, I don't want you to be in the middle of the hall, by the way, so either on one side or the other. What if I'm like way over, almost leaning on the wall here, okay? That's going to put my vertical axis where on this drawing? Over here on the right, right? Almost even with the corner of the room, right? Remember, this is where your head is located, left or right. It's not where you're looking. You can look anywhere. It's where you are in the room. That's where you do the vertical axis. So let's say I'm all the way pushed over. And let's say that I'm sitting on a chair. So where would my eye level be relative? Halfway maybe? Yeah, maybe around halfway. So you got to guesstimate that, right? That's my horizon line, right? Right there is my vanishing point, right? See how I located my vanishing point relative to the plane I'm looking at, or the shape of the plane I'm looking at. Now I project my lines, right? From infinity into the room. And that will give me the angle of the hallway. And those go all the way to the edge of the paper. They go past me, right? They just go right off the edge. So I'm in the room, right? Now look at if I'm all the way over here, leaning against this wall, which wall is more foreshortened, this one or this one? This one. So how might I alter my composition to account for that? Yeah, move this, so I got to go back to the drawing board again, no pun intended, and move the whole thing over, because I don't like my composition. Maybe something like that, right? Now, I'm seeing more of the wall over here, right? Less of the wall over here. What if I love the reflections on the floor but don't like the ceiling lights? Move it up, right? Yeah, so think about your composition relative to the space you're in, okay? So proportion has to be correct. Scale, to get that sense of run of the space. And position. Okay? Everybody with me so far? And you're doing this with a straight edge. You know, just use your ruler. Don't use the ruler. Don't use the numbers on the ruler. Don't ever do measuring. And I had somebody yesterday, and I walked by them, and they were at the 92 and a half. I said, what 92 and a half? Where's that coming? Well, the ceilings are probably 8 foot high, and I'm going to go down 2 inches. And no, remember, if you're getting past fourths, you know, in terms of fractions, you know, you're getting in trouble. So you're only using your straight edge or your ruler for a straight edge, not numbers, okay? Don't ever use numbers, because it's not math. You use math, but this is not math, okay? All right, so let's say, got that correct? Okay, let's say there's a door in this wall. Yeah, in this wall I'm looking at, and the door is something like this. How would I figure out, so I've got this is all I got on my drawing so far. Let's move this over. So I'm a little over more in the hallway, let's say. I'm right here. I haven't done these lines yet. What I'm doing though is, I could do them, you know, because it's pretty easy. All I do is go like that, right? So, but what I'm trying to figure out is put that door in this wall first. What I do, it's something like that. What's the difference between those two?
If you're sitting, then it's
It's
really
not
tall.
taller.
Well, that's obvious, right? Yeah, it would be taller than my head, or my head would be taller than the door.
Your view.
Yeah. How would I figure? In fact, it's going to be more like this. Doors are a little taller than these spaces. So, how would I? What method would I use to figure out where to place this door on this plane?
Measure it.
Visual measurement, yeah. So you got a bunch of scenarios you could use, right? I go to the negative space. What I would do is take my pencil and measure the space between here and the corner of the room and relate it to what? Huh? Height. Yeah, that's an obvious thing. That's my given. My two givens are the width of this to begin with and the height of it, right? So I'm going to measure that negative space, turn it, and see if it fits, how it fits in the height, right? So I'll go here. This is the reality, right? There's 1. I get 1 plus a little extra. I go to my drawing. There's the 1. 1, it's too much, so I got to move this over a little bit more. Something like that. There's the 1. 1 plus a little extra. Now I know this is in the right place. How about the height of the door? We know it's below eye level, so that doesn't make sense. But here I could go and measure this and do what with it? I could stack it in the height, right? 1, 2, and so I'm getting a general idea. Oh, that's not very big. That's about 5. So I go to my drawing and I check that out, and I get 2. So that's I see this all the time. So that's a telltale sign that I'm not anywhere close. So I'd have to lengthen this up, right? Now it's not an exact science, but now I'm getting closer. That's visual measurement. So now, by using that method, I know for sure that that's getting close, to what that is. Door looks a little wide, but so this space right here, I double check that negative space maybe, right? How many of these fits in here? 1, 2, 3 with a little extra. There's mine 1, 2, 3, 4 with a little extra. So that's, maybe I need to narrow this door a little bit and widen that negative space, okay, et cetera, okay? Now 1, 2, 3, a little extra. Now I'm in good shape. So this uses visual measurement to position things, right? To get the right shape and size of things. That's really important. So we got that. Now we can kind of project out through here. Okay. Now, one more thing here to think about. Remember, I want that horizon line and the vertical axis in there, so I know that you're thinking about positioning. Then you put that vanishing point in. There's doorways in the hallway here, right? So, this is the real situation, right? What if a door? You don't always have to work from here back. You could skip. You'll see a bunch of stuff in the way. Move. Remember how I figured out where the edge of that board was? I ignored all the information in between. I just want to know how far down that wall the edge of that board was, and I worked my way backwards. So let's say there's a door here. There's a bunch of doors here. It's very small increments. I don't want to worry about them right now. But I see something on the wall that's important, a doorway right here, let's say. Up closer to me, right? Let's say there's still stuff here. And I make my door, that door right there, but I draw it like this. Which will happen. How do I check out whether this is correct relative to what's really happening in the real scenario here?
Again, visual measurement.
Visual measurement, yeah. I go back to my benchmark, which is the height of that wall maybe. I got a couple other benchmarks now, right? If I figured all this out correctly, I got this little space, I got that space, I got this space. I got like 4 or 5 new spaces I can compare to, right? Don't get carried away with that, but there's every time you make something in a drawing and you do it right relative to what you did before, something you did, you're adding on to the structure of the drawings you can compare to. It's just this building block process. So yeah, so let me go to the real scenario, and I don't turn your pencil down the length of the wall. You got to keep it parallel to your body, and I would measure that space right there from the corner of the room, which I have, to where the door begins maybe here, and I'm going to measure that and turn it relative to the height of this wall maybe. I get 1 plus maybe a half again, not quite half again. Go to my drawing. There's the 1. I'm getting 1 to 1. So what do I need to do to fix that?
Length.
No, this is space between the door.
Oh.
and the end of the hallway, the wall. In my scenario, it was 1 plus a half again.
Move it further closer to the door.
Yeah, I gotta diminish this space here, right? Yeah. So I gotta move this edge down the wall a little bit. I overestimated how far down this, let's check that out. You gotta do corrections in your drawing. 1, that's better than a half again. So I know that's correct. And then I just finish the door off. But that's obviously not correct. So I gotta go back and measure from the front edge of the door to the back edge of the door and compare it to what? What do I have in my drawing to compare it to? I got this stuff, right? All this stuff I've drawn. So I measure the width of the doorway and compare it to what over here?
The negative space to the left.
Yeah, maybe that, right? Or I could stack it in this. I got a bunch of options. I could compare it to the width of that. Whatever I do, I'm going to come up with a comparison, right? So let's say I do it with this negative space here. I measure the width of this door and just take my pencil and go over, what is it? What's the relationship between those two things? Or the width, yeah. And I'm getting, well, just about a 1-to-1. This is maybe a little narrower, but close to a 1-to-1. Go back to my drawing. I grab that and do what with it? Move it over. I don't want to move that line, but I want to move that line, right? Because this space has been figured out. Look where the door actually is. It's very foreshortened. That's the shape of the door. Now, what about the height here? How do I figure that out? How high it goes up? Yeah, I'll go over here. I'll take a little measurement, maybe compare it to that again. Oh, it's the same. Go back here, check that out. Oh, that's pretty good. I was pretty good with that. Here's a trick, though, you could do. You can get the height of the door in this wall. Remember, we figured that out, right? Extend a line all the way over to the corner of the room. Boom, boom. And what do I do with those? Yeah, I take those from the vanishing point, and I got the heights of all the doors, all the way up. Because by code, they need to be consistent. So every door I make, I can use that line as the top of the door. Okay? That'll give me the line of the top of all those doors. There's a paint line out there. Here, everybody gets in trouble with this. So my horizon line on this scenario is about 2/3 of the way up, right? Let's say the paint line, it's a two-tone out in the hallway. Let's say the paint line is higher than my eye level, okay? So I'm going to figure out how high to make it. I'll put a little dot there. So that's how high. There's a light value here and a peach value down here. So I know that I got to show that paint line, the two-tone. Here's what everybody does. They find out how high it is, and then they put a line straight across. So that's a horizontal line coming at me, so what must it do? Vanishing point, right? Yeah. So I got to project from that paint line goes up as it comes to me. That space gets wider. Be careful about that. Here, it's if that was a paint line across here, that's just a horizontal, right? Come over here, and that paint line goes up higher. So any line that runs to you, and here's we're back to the dividing this space equally, right? You might have 4 tiles. Right? Those all, again, splay out from there, right? See, 4 tiles. There's about 12 of them. They would all pivot around that vanishing point, you know. And then these colored tiles, you'd have to measure those out. Those get skinnier, of course, as they move down. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
It's a question.
How do you know where to go? I mean, you're drawing the lines.
Right there. That's right there. That's my vanishing point. Everything that moves away from me that's a horizontal line goes to that vanishing point. Everything. That's why it's so easy. That's why I know where they go. That's controlling the whole drawing. And that's why it's so important to find out where your body is relative to that plane to begin with, so you can have the perspective look like right relative to your body position. Does somebody else have a question? No. Adam, did you have a question?
I'll check the video in a little bit. I'll probably find some.
Okay.
I'm just kind of trying to drink it all in here.
You don't really know this until you act it out. So remember that. When you make art, you don't really understand it until you do it. Okay? That's the problem with teaching art and learning art, is you don't know this until you're out there struggling away at this, and I'll go out and help you with it. I'll be out there with you, yeah. You'll struggle on your own, and I'm going to come around, I'll find you, or you come find me, right? But struggle. You need to struggle. I had somebody yesterday that just kept coming over to me and said, is this right? And it was right, but she didn't trust herself, right? You know, so struggle with it a little. I'll come and I'll make adjustments. I'll say, no, think about this. This is, so don't worry about it. You don't need to get it right first time. Don't worry about that. Okay. So, just basics here, okay? No doorknobs. You can draw the exit sign in, but don't put the word exit. No, I don't want to see the word exit. No, everybody gravitates right to that. That's how they let me know it's a hallway. There's the exit sign. No, I'm half joking, but it's a detail that people always want to put in because it kind of justifies the drawing in a certain way. Don't worry about that. This is about the structure of the drawing. Okay, so the details, again, as always is the case, they come in later. Okay, today this will be a 2 or 3 class period drawing. So where to go for the drawing? If you go out in this hallway and look back down this way, that's a good hallway. The vending machine area is a good hallway, and you position yourself at one end or another and draw the whole length of the hallway. This hallway going down to culinary arts, long hallway. You don't need to draw the whole hallway. If you want to draw that hallway, go halfway down and either look back this way or look down to the culinary arts area. Okay? The hallway by my office, by the gallery doors, that's a good hallway. There's benches at the other end, so you can kind of go there and draw there. Remember, you're going to have a lot of stuff in the way. Doors are going to be open. You're going to have a lot of distractions. You got to simplify in your head what you're going to do. There's a painfully simple hallway as you're walking down to the culinary arts area. If you want to kind of get your feet wet a little bit and then maybe move on to a different space after that. There's a hallway that goes to the right that has like 2 classrooms in it. There's only 2 doors in that hallway. Draw that hall if you feel like you need to kind of learn a little bit here. The drawing 2 students, I'm going to walk you down to where I want you guys to draw. So I'll show you a much more complex space. You guys draw. So that's about it. Don't draw the lobby because the ceilings are tilted. I mean, this is too complex. Don't go outside this room and look that direction and draw it. That's too complex. There's too much going on. There's not enough simplification in that scenario. Drawing board, piece of drawing paper, pencil, eraser, and straight edge. That's all you need. Oh, chairs. So you can sit on the floor. Don't use these, but there's chairs in the painting room here. You could probably steal a couple other. There's rolling chairs in the lobby. You probably could roll some of those down. Remember, don't sit smack dab in the middle of the hallway, left and right, because the police don't like it because they've told me before it's blocking the hallway. And also, it's not a very good view. It's just right in the middle, right? You want to be pushed left, right. I find that some of the drawings that are most effective, the artist is sitting to the right or left, and on the floor. It's a dramatic, dramatic view. So, whatever you want to do, but realize that you probably don't want to stand, okay? Because that's we're going to be working on this for a week probably to get these drawings home correctly. So, draw lightly so you can erase. Plan on erasing. Take a little break if you need to, and then go ahead and draw, and I'll go find you. Okay.